Well, I mentioned in a previous video that I recently watched through the movie Spartacus with Kirk Douglas, directed by Kubrick and/or produced by Kubrick. Um, and I had another observation, another apologetic application from that movie. But first, I had a few announcements I wanted to make. The first is that Chuck Colson died. He passed away, I think, about 2 weeks ago now, at 80 years old, I believe from a brain hemorrhage. Now, if you've never heard of Chuck Colson, then that's not going to be terribly troubling to you. But if you are familiar with him, you may be upset to hear the tragic news. But he did live a good full life, and that's good. He was part of the Nixon administration. He worked for Nixon. In particular, he worked for Nixon, helping Nixon to get reelected. That is, he was part of the Watergate conspiracy, and he went to prison for that. But about that same time, he became a Christian and went on to, after he got out of prison, to minister to prisoners. He has done the Angel Tree program, which you may be familiar with, at Christmas time, and has done a lot with cultural things, cultural analysis and apologetics in that sense. He was one of the main people behind evangelicals and Catholics together, which caused now a deal of chagrin to people that otherwise liked what he had to say. Some people that liked what he had to say aren't very big fans of Roman Catholicism. But at any rate, that's the first announcement. The second announcement, a while ago, one or maybe even 2 years ago now, I have to go back and listen to the video again of Daniel Clark, Theophage, but it's been a while since he and I were planning on doing a debate revolving around the modal ontological argument. And more specifically, is the concept of God a coherent one or not? So that debate is on. We've begun doing the debate, and the first video, which all the other videos will be linked to, is called The New God Debate, and then there's a colon, 2 dots. The New God Debate, colon, introduction. So the New God Debate, introduction. And, excuse me, that is being set up. That introduction video sets up the debate, the context of the debate, and then we go from there. I'll be putting up my first video here, excuse me, soon. Alright, so in the book of Exodus, in the Old Testament, there is a excuse me, a story of the Exodus, and that's where the book gets its name from, the Exodus from Egypt. And a lot of people have said that when you look at history and archaeology outside of the Bible, history, non-biblical history, archaeology, there's no record of the Israelites being slaves in Egypt and then leaving Egypt. But that is supposed to be a case where absence of evidence is evidence of absence. Excuse me, my goodness. But in the movie Spartacus, which is fictional, but it's based in history, and I'm not sure if this part was historical or not, but the Roman soldier that was going after Spartacus at first underestimated his opponent, and then he is appearing before he loses a battle to the slave rebellion led by Spartacus, and he appears before before the Roman Senate to give an account, and they ask him why he didn't take the normal precautions that Roman soldiers would normally do, Roman generals would normally do with their armies. And he was kind of dumbfounded. He said, but they were just slaves. In other words, these are second-class people. They're not really fully human, so they're not good enough to take seriously as a military threat. Well, that came back to bite him in the hindquarters. But it shows what I think was a true opinion held by the Romans, the free Romans, the Roman citizens of slaves at that time, and of most slaveholders of their slaves in all generations, that slaves are not really people. Well, if the Egyptians had a slave rebellion similar to the one that Spartacus had, in some ways, they would be embarrassed, I would think, that the slaves did what they did do, and of course it was God working through them, but through Moses more specifically. But the slaves won, so to speak, in a war of sorts with the Egyptians. And they won their freedom. Not only were they able to leave Egypt, the Egyptians themselves, the Pharaoh himself, according to the biblical account, told them to leave. And then he said, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So he went after them, and then a lot of them drowned in the Red Sea. So that's what the biblical account says. Where Spartacus comes in is this attitude that people, I think, have had towards slaves throughout history. And I've read before, too, that the Egyptians looked on non-Egyptians, whether they're slaves or not, as being inferior. The world revolves around Egypt. From their perspective, that's an overgeneralization, but that seems to be the general consensus, based on what I've heard. So it would be surprising if the Egyptians left a written text or a monument inscription saying that these 50% people or 40% people or not even people beat them as badly as they did. So that would be one reason to not expect the Egyptians to keep a record of their greatest, well, what would seem to be their greatest defeat, military defeat of sorts, in their history. Well, just some more food for thought from the movie Spartacus, and yeah, shalom out.